Hello and welcome. We're always told to adapt to change, right? But what if that's kind of bad advice? What if adapting is just playing defense? Today, we're going to dive into a much more powerful idea, how to stop just reacting to the future and actually start creating it. And this quote really gets to the heart of it. In today's world, creativity isn't some fluffy, nice-to-have skill for the art department. Nope, it's the core strategy for winning. It's how you create what some people call a temporary monopoly, getting so far ahead that everyone else is just left playing catch-up. So, what's the fuel for all this? Well, it's right between your ears. It's our gray matter. The smartest leaders out there, they get it. They know their most critical asset isn't the fancy tech or piles of cash. It's the brainpower of their people. The real game is figuring out how to unleash that. Okay, but before we can unleash anything, we all need to be on the same page. We need a common language. So let's quickly lock in the definitions for three key words that are going to be the foundation for everything we talk about: creativity, innovation, and quality. Think of it like a simple three-step journey. Step one is creativity. That's just the spark, right? The idea that pops into your head. It doesn't have to be perfect or even practical at this stage, just new. Then comes step two, innovation. This is where you take that idea and make it real. You build the thing, you create the service, you do something that makes a customer just go, wow. And that leads us to step three, quality. Quality is all about being able to deliver that wow factor over and over and over again. It's about consistency. All right, so it all starts with creativity. But this is where we hit our first major hurdle, and it's a personal one. So many of us have this idea in our heads that creativity is some magical gift that only a few creative types are born with. The artists, the musicians. Well, we're about to bust that myth wide open. So I want you to ask yourself this question and be really honest. Am I creative? For a lot of people, the answer that comes to mind is, like, it's shaky. It's full of doubt. And that one little question, that one little doubt, can be enough to kill a world-changing idea before it even gets started. But here's the simple, awesome truth. If you can generate ideas, any ideas at all, then congratulations, you are creative. That's it. That's the bar. It's not some exclusive club. It's a basic human skill, something we all have. And this leads to a really interesting paradox, which the founder of Visa, D. Hawk, pointed out. He said, the real challenge isn't learning new stuff. It's forgetting what we already know. It's about unlearning. It's about breaking free from the old habits and patterns that keep our natural creativity locked up. So if we're all creative, then what's the problem? What's holding us back? Well, it turns out there are four major roadblocks. Think of them as invisible walls that block our best ideas. Let's dive in and break them down one by one. Okay, here are the four culprits: the perceptual block, the cultural block, the emotional block, and the intellectual block. This is our roadmap for the next few minutes. And really, understanding these is the first big step to unlocking that creativity we were just talking about. First up, the perceptual block. This is basically our brain on autopilot. And get this, some research suggests we're on autopilot like 80% of the time, which, is great for driving to work without thinking about it, but it's terrible for innovation. Why? Because our autopilot brain just filters out anything new or different. We literally can't even see a new possibility because our brain has already decided this is how it's done. Okay, next one. But we are different. Come on, you've heard this one, right? Maybe you've even said it. This is the classic line of our second roadblock, the cultural block. This is when we stop looking inward and start pointing fingers at our environment. This is the ultimate idea killer. You hear a great idea that worked somewhere else, and the immediate reaction is, oh, that won't work here. We blame the company culture, the traditions, the way things have always been. A super simple way to fight this is to just change the question. Instead of, that won't work here, try asking, okay, how could we make a version of that work here? Totally changes the game. All right, our next block is much more personal. It's that little voice of fear in the back of your head. You know the one. It whispers, what if we fail? What if my boss hates it? What if everyone laughs at me? That voice, it can be absolutely paralyzing. It puts our best ideas in a cage before they ever get a chance to fly. And that's the emotional block. It's a cage of fear built brick by brick from our own lack of confidence. So how do you break out? You need a goal so big, so exciting, so compelling that it's more powerful than the fear. When you're passionate about the mission, suddenly the fear doesn't seem so scary anymore.
And that brings us to the last and maybe the most ironic roadblock of them all, the intellectual block. This is where we actually use our own smarts against ourselves. We're so good at logic and data that we use facts and history to prove with absolute certainty why a new creative idea is impossible. We literally reason our way out of a breakthrough.
So, how do you get past your own big brain? There's this amazing tool called dissociation. I know, it's a weird word, but the concept is simple and powerful. It's all about taking two totally unrelated things and smashing them together to see what new idea pops out. And these examples are just perfect. Think about it. A trolley plus a suitcase, boom, you get a suitcase with wheels. A copier plus a telephone, you get a fax machine. An igloo plus a hotel, an ice palace. See? None of these amazing ideas came from just thinking harder about suitcases or clocks. They came from making a weird connection. It's a surefire way to jolt your brain out of its usual patterns. Okay, so we've talked about what we're aiming for and what's standing in our way. And that brings us to a really important choice. And this isn't a choice between good and bad. It's a choice between just surviving and actually winning.
Just look at the two paths here. Adapting to change, that's a survival strategy. It's passive. You're always on your back foot, letting other people make life tough for you. But innovating, leading change, that's a winning strategy. That's when you're the one setting the pace. That's when you make life tough for everyone else. And let's be honest, that sounds a lot more fun.
And that's really what this all boils down to. It's great to know about these 4 roadblocks, but knowing isn't doing. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. What old pattern would you break first? When you look at your work, your team, your own habits, what's the first thing you're going to challenge?